Yeah.
Yeah. Happy.
Okay,
Okay, well, is it recording?
For the last minute.
Well, that's excellent. That's nice.
Is it really? Because we've been talking logistics.
Yeah, well, that's fine. Now we can just talk about what you drink.
We don't want the fans to hear logistics.
What you drinking there?
Then we'll cut it.
Yeah, what you drinking there?
A what?
Cutwater. Strawberry margarita.
Wow.
Are we sponsored by
Is it
them?
strong? No,
Yeah.
we're not sponsored by anyone.
10%.
Although, I was listening to our episode the other day, and we had an ad. We had an ad on Spotify. We getting money from that?
Wait,
Yes, well, at least I applied for us to be monetized, so that must mean we got accepted.
I played our first Ep4 on Spotify, and it started with an ad.
Oh my gosh, we've made 3 cents in 30 days.
Holy we made it.
Cool.
We made it. All right, that's 1 cent each.
welcome to The Boys Take Holly-wEiRd. Tonight we're going to be covering The Last of Us. This is Brandon, Nick, and Hudson.
Yeah, I bet we change our theme song. What is that? What?
Is
No,
that the hub?
it's supposed to be the hub, but I definitely that.
Yeah, that was
The
bad.
hub.
That was bad. Bad at the hub.
I'm gonna have to
sponsored
I'm
by
gonna
the
have to
hub.
listen to it.
We are not
Alright.
sponsored by the hub, but we might be making more than 3 cents if we are sponsored by the hub. So that'd be cool.
God, that would be crazy. I would take a hub sponsor.
Yeah, I mean,
If they offered, I would do it.
those are films too. We can talk about them.
That's true.
sometime.
They have their own awards too.
Adult filmography.
Yes. Are you judging?
No.
Well, he's judging the films
Oh,
I will critique
and voting
the-
for best actress and actor and best.
they're filmmakers.
That's true. Yeah, I agree about that.
Season 1, Episode 2 of The Last of Us, titled Infected,
Mm-hmm.
was really good. Really enjoyed it, personally.
Yeah, I enjoyed it so much I watched it twice. So
I think we
I've
all
watched
did.
them both twice. I'm trying to
Oh, okay.
watch the previous episode right before the new episode.
It's good of you.
Like just within a day or two. I've been meaning to ask you, Nick. At this
Mhm.
point, now that we've seen a little bit more of Ellie, how are you feeling about
I
the
think-
acting and the character?
I think I'm sold on her officially.
Yeah.
Let's see. She plays the role of Ellie very defensively, and I think that's pretty nuanced.
I agree about that.
That I don't necessarily see the Ellie in the game playing. The Ellie in the game is just kind of like this sassy teenager with some harshness behind it. But this Ellie in the show plays her very defensively, as if she's like shielding the real her, which I feel like is pretty deep. So I at least in this second episode, I haven't rewatched the first episode, but in the second one, I think I'm officially sold. I think I just need the third episode to really sell me, but I'm like 90% there. She really killed it in this last episode.
Yeah, I was watching her performance pretty closely in this last one just to kind of see... Because I remember reading a quote from the director, and he was like, we watched 100 girls audition for Ellie, and it felt like they were all playing the character of Ellie. And then when I watched her audition, it felt like I was watching Ellie. So he clearly saw something, and I was really trying to watch for it. And actually, when you're watching it too, like, not only is her delivery really, really good, she does these subtle little physicalities, and it's very childish, very teenager, just kind of touching stuff, fucking with stuff. Like, as she's walking by, she's looking at shit. She seems very much like just a kid out in the world who is experiencing things, who kind of cares but kind of doesn't. Like, she really is portraying something super strong, and I think she's gonna absolutely rock it for this show. And Pedro Pascal is just amazing.
I really like the bit in this latest episode where they're like wading through the water, and she's trying to make these jokes to try to lighten the mood or something, and then she starts like pretending to be a waiter or something, or someone at a hotel, and then she's totally scared by the skeleton that falls. That was a really good moment.
I agree. That moment's from the game. And that's just one of those moments, it's not a cutscene or anything, it's just when you're wandering around. and she kind of just is over in the background doing that. And so that, I really enjoyed that they pulled that. Just like that's a good moment for them to have taken that's not a cut scene and to kind of create a little scene out of it.
Something you were mentioning, because that scene when they're waiting in the water happens later on in the episode, though. So does that little moment with Ellie happen, or sorry, later on in the game? Does that
the hotel where they're in the lobby?
Yeah.
That's way much later in the game. That's way later in the game. It's like the very similar scene, but they don't go through that hotel in that part in the game. So they kind of just took that part and moved it up here. Because in the game at that part, they're kind of going through the skyscrapers and some other stuff.
Yeah,
the museum stuff's all the same, though.
Yeah. They start off in like the crooked skyscraper, and then the museum is after that. And I think I wonder if they're gonna go into that skyscraper. It sounds like looks like they're gonna just completely avoid it.
Yeah,
I have no idea. But I will say too that this show is absolutely killing the sets.
Yeah.
The sets and the makeup and the props. It's all spot on. And I was reading a little bit behind the scenes for that too, and they were like, yeah, sometimes we built these elaborate set pieces that we used once for one scene.
Yeah.
And they went all out for each one. And these shots have been so good. They really are. Like, they didn't care. HBO gave them a budget, and they fucking used it.
Yeah.
Because it looks so good.
There are moments where, like, when they're outside and you can see, like, the horizon, that kind of looks fake to me.
A little green screeny.
A little green screen.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I wonder how much is real compared to what's CG. Because, like, obviously the buildings in the background are going to be CG when they're all messed up and falling, and they're all just like the rafters and
totally. I think I mean, as far as I know, of course every building they're in is practical. I think everything they approach has some combo of practicality and green screen. So like probably when they got to the museum, I bet you anything the front of the museum was a practical set piece with a green screen behind it where they were able to kind of put in the rest. So I'm sure there's a good mix. But yeah, I agree. The Horizon stuff looks kind of... But I forgive it.
Yeah, talking about the set pieces, there was a really interesting part that was like kind of eerie to me. They're walking through the hotel and there's like the set piece of all the tables and then like all of the wine glasses on the table, but then there's just like moss growing on it. It's like, it kind of reminds me of like, I don't know, like if you look at like the Titanic underwater, and it's just like how eerie it is, where it's just like totally apocalypsed.
Totally.
But it's just like natural, real world stuff.
That sort of regrowth of nature.
Yeah.
Which I've always loved that about like the post-apocalyptic thing, where like nature kind of takes over, and you have all these things that are just like covered.
Yes.
No, I mean it looks really good, and they did establish early Ellie can't swim. I was wondering if they were going to end up doing that, and we've now established Ellie cannot swim. So that's like we know that moving forward, they are continuing that sort of trait for her, which will definitely. I mean, obviously going to come up later. She probably is going to almost drown, and then Joel saves her. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
Or we'll see her moving on a
raft. Wooden pallet.
Yeah.
Because it was nice that this one there weren't actually any stakes with it. Like she didn't need to have to swim, but it's like foreshadowing. Probably
Joel just mocked her.
That was funny. I did like that. I enjoyed a couple little game references. I enjoyed when he lifted Tess over the wall, and then that also created a nice little dialogue moment for him and Ellie, and then also even just when they right before the clicker stuff happens, where they walk through and then the wall, like the ceiling collapses behind them. That's such like a game thing, just like to block off. So
I thought the same thing.
Yeah, and something like that literally happens in the game where they get separated because ceiling collapses. So it's kind of similar.
Yeah, or like you hit a checkpoint and something behind you falls, so you cannot go back physically. That's exactly what I thought when they hit that museum room. I was like, checkpoint.
Yeah. It was like in the first episode when the fiery car separates him and Tommy. That was like also a very video game thing.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So I kind of like how they're doing those little moments.
One thing that I really, really liked was that little moment where Tess is kind of doing her own thing, and it's just Joel and Ellie having that small bit of dialogue exchange, and you can kind of see him for a second, like, all right, I'll talk to this girl, and he asks, like, where'd you learn to do that? And she just snarks immediately. She's like, the circus. And he's like, well, all right, well, f*** you then.
Yeah.
And then she kind of is like, okay, fine, and she drops her guard a little bit and try to ask him questions, and he's like, nah, f*** you, I'm done. And he puts his guard back up. And so he's kind of giving her a little bit, but he's also like, you lost your chance. And so that little tidbit kind of gave us an insight into what their relationship is going to look like moving forward. It's going to be really cool seeing those walls break down.
Yes.
And how they both will kind of start to open up and be a little bit more real with each other.
Yeah.
Well, even how that episode starts, I think, is so interesting. Where, like, Joel's flat out aiming his gun at her, like about to kill her.
Yeah.
Like, wanting, like, their relationship is starting at absolutely below ground zero. Mm-hmm. Like, when you think of The Last of Us, you think of them being like these super deep characters, like deeply involved with each other, relationship wise, like they're entangled with each other, but. You don't really, I guess you don't, at least to me, I don't really think about, like, how they start out.
Yeah.
I thought that was super interesting that, yeah, they're, like, totally abrasive towards each other.
Yeah. Yeah,
and I think they are not friends.
The game definitely starts that way,
yeah.
but you forget about it because you go through the game, you finish the game, you see how the relationship ends. So that's the Ellie and Joel that we remember.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then to kind of come back into the beginning of their storyline, you're like, oh, yeah, here we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so harsh, but it is cool. It's going to be fun watching that change again, like, for the first time, because it does feel like it's, like, the first time seeing it again, which is kind of strange. What did you guys think of Ep4, the mycology professor, the opening scene?
Oh, yeah! How do we not talk about that yet?
How do you like that? Because that's 2 episodes now where it started with, like, a little opening that wasn't from the game. Do you think they're going to continue that, and are you liking it?
I am sure that I wouldn't be surprised if they continued it. At this point, I don't know what else is there to add to that.
Yeah.
We've seen kind of the original science behind it. We've seen sort of the modern science right before the outbreak. They could maybe show a little something. I'm sure that there'll be some more, like, scientific references, but more matching the timeline, I guess.
Yeah.
Like where they're at now with it
Right.
in terms of trying to find, like, a cure.
I don't know what else I would want from a cold open. I think they've already set a pattern here. I kind of am expecting a cool cold open like that that's taking place before the apocalypse. It could be a family that was dealing with things as it was crashing down or something. I don't know. But
right.
going forward, what else would be the cold opens?
Well,
Frank.
Yeah,
moving forward,
you
Frank,
can have Bill.
Yeah, it could be
or
Frank
Bill.
and,
I'm sorry.
Frank
Yeah,
and,
Frank
well, it could be Frank and Bill.
I meant Bill.
Flashbacks.
But yeah, Frank and Bill.
Could be flashbacks. I hope it's flashbacks. That way we get to see more of how the world was falling apart.
Even early apocalypse could be cool. Like, well, I know, like, in the casting, they had cast, like, a woman who is going to be going through, like, a very difficult childbirth is what it said, and there's nothing like that in the game. So a lot of people are theorizing. Oh, and it's played by the girl, I can't think of her name right now, who plays Ellie in the game. So people think that that's going to be maybe Ellie's mother giving birth. They're going to, because they don't show anything like that in the game, but it would be cool to have stuff like that if you're, like, doing early apocalypse, or just, like, even if they're not all flashbacks to before the apocalypse, just flashbacks that are just, like, showing things early on that have never been in the game, I think would be really cool. Or even, like, you could get just different stuff with the characters you get throughout the game, like Sam and Henry, or even Marlene and Ellie, and I don't know, stuff like that.
Okay, Ashley Johnson is that actress, and she was cast as a character in this show named Anna Williams, and she's set to appear in episode 8.
Oh, episode
wow,
8.
so late.
And I think I've also heard rumors that is supposed to be the episode that includes a lot of the Left Behind content from the DLC that shows Ellie's past with getting bitten. So that would be maybe a cold open for that episode.
Cool.
Could be Ellie's birth or something like that.
Yeah, so I kind of hope that each episode does have a really cool, like, flashback.
Oh, yeah. I hope that the flashbacks are
open.
mostly disconnected from the rest of the episode.
Yeah.
Because it's very cool how they're doing that so far.
Oh my gosh, and it was so cool. The line that what's her name? Ep4?
Ep4, I believe.
Ep4.
I might be saying it wrong.
Where they ask her, what do you think we should do next? And she says,
Bomb.
Bomb
Start
the whole
bombing
city.
the cities.
Which is fair.
Yeah.
And then she's like,
that is the only way to
ride
fix it.
home.
Yeah, be with my family.
Yeah.
Mooch.
Mooch.
Mooch. Yeah, the world's ending. You're trying to mooch a ride.
I caught when Nick and I were rewatching it too. I caught, like, it was kind of a reversal of the roles in that situation, because it was like you had the scientist saying bomb it, and the military guy was, like, sitting there being really shocked, which was kind of
that is cool.
A cool little reversal. Like, I don't know
what we would normally see.
Yeah, of what you would see in a movie. Normally, it'd be like the scientist, like, oh, we got to find a way to cure this or whatever, and then the military guy would be like, oh, let's just bomb it. But in this one, it was like he was so shocked that was her. And that's almost more scary, because it's the scientist who's like, there's nothing else. You just got to bomb the shit out of it.
Well, it's cool how we're starting to get a peek into how the length of infection changes the effect of the infection. So he was like, some can live 2 months, some have been walking around for 20 years. Yeah. And that's how we're establishing the idea that, okay, well, clickers have been infected a little longer, and then you have these other types of infected that we haven't seen yet who are going to be just absolutely insane. Which, you remember the names of those, but I don't remember the names of those guys.
Bloaters and shamblers.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But that's cool, how we're kind of establishing that already. Also, God, the clickers look so good.
They do look so good.
In the game, Brundon, do they talk about this hive-mindedness that the show talks about? Like, the fact where, like, they shoot that one clicker and it triggers miles away to all the other clickers to come in. And
that's half right, but Brandon, continue.
What I missed?
It's not about shooting a clicker and infected and it waking up those ones. It was about stepping on a what were they calling it? It's like stepping on the fungus in the ground that's connected to the infected that are feeding off of it somewhere else.
So it's like in a forest. It's like how fungi actually operate, like in a forest or like a tree. Funguses, sorry. In a forest, like all the trees and different things are connected, and that's how these things work for real. Like, you can... We're not going to get over that. It's funguses, people. Can we just move on from that? All right, I will not say fungi. Okay, that's just absurd. So... in these environments, it's like, it's all connected, so it's like the idea of, that one wakes up in the state house at the end, he has to shoot it, and then they all, like, feel the pain of that one bit of the collective organism dying.
Right.
So it's like... No, to answer your question, though, that is not in the game.
Yeah, I don't remember that either.
And that's kind of what they're replacing the spores idea with, just in general, of because they took out the spores, obviously, because it's hard to justify that spores. I think Neil Druckmann said that they would localize in one location and not spread, or that it would just be on your clothes. So you take your gas mask off, you would still probably get infected. It's way easier to buy into that in a video game. And then also you don't have to cover your actors' faces with gas masks all the time and stuff too. So they took that out and put the hive mind thing in, and I think the hive mind makes them way scarier too, because it's this idea like in the game, you go into a section, you take out a bunch of them, and then you're relatively safe till the next time. But in this one, it's like fighting one, you're almost risking, like Joel has to kill that one right there, and then all of these swarms. So I hope we keep seeing that throughout the whole season. Like, I hope we get a lot of moments like that where it's like kind of almost risky to even take on one. Like, I don't know, that improved the idea of trying to be stealthy too, I feel like, and trying to get away from them.
I think moving forward in the episode a little bit, so obviously the museum thing was super cool, and seeing all those clickers and actually coming to life and hearing that sound, that was they really introduced it so well, because they kind of gave you just the little bits of clickers and a little more and a little more, and you were just waiting and waiting and waiting. So you got that audible cue first, and you were like, oh god, I want to hear more. And then you got the visual cue, and you're like, I want to see more. And they really just led you into it so well. And by the time you were actually just fully in it, you were in it. And it was so well done.
Oh, God. Well, I think even in addition to that, they precede it or foreshadow it before that, because they mention, or they say if Ellie does so much as tweak or something like that. And then, Twitch. Yeah. And then she does her little thing, and that's your first foreshadow.
That's funny. That was a funny bit, too.
Yeah. And it's clear that, like, she's lived her whole life in this environment, but she's never even experienced a clicker. So she's, like, making jokes about these clickers, and then the second she sees a clicker, she's terrified.
Right. The way they do build up to it is genius. Because it's like when they're walking, and she's like, are there infected that shoot balls of spores at you or something? And they're, like, kind of, like, joking, like, okay, that's silly. And then she's like, well, what about ones that have, like, split open heads and move around like bats? And Joel's like, well... It's all awkwardly silent. Well, those might be real.
But then leading into the Capitol building, it was cool how we sort of saw the change of, well, we're going to remove the Fedra agents and not have Joel and Tess just murdering people. We don't want to get there yet. They turned it into sort of an infected thing, and then it became more about that, which I appreciate. I like that they're bringing more infected into this than people being the problem. Like, obviously we want people to be the problem, but I think that was part of their big thing about, like, It's so easy to compare this to The Walking Dead, but it's gonna. I don't want to like outcast anyone who hasn't seen The Walking Dead or doesn't care about The Walking Dead, but they were the biggest zombie show for a while.
Yeah.
So then to now have this new zombie show that's taking different directions and liberties is super cool. But they're trying to. Well, we're only 2 episodes in, but they're very zombie heavy, which is cool. They're less people heavy, and I think that was the one fault with The Walking Dead is that eventually it just became all about the people, and in fact, it really never became a part of it.
Well, Brendan, you were saying something when we were rewatching it that I think is really interesting is the fact that this show is actually attempting to be scary.
Oh, yeah.
In comparison to The Walking Dead, which I've never once felt scared in.
No.
This show
jump scares, but it's not it's just jump scares because a walker pops out and scares you. But yeah, I know.
Like the scene when I think they're in the Capitol building when you first see the clicker and it's like all by itself. The museum, yeah. And he's just doing all his like weird video game moves, and then Joel's slowly reloading his pistol,
trying to be quiet and putting the shells in his pocket.
And the shot is a 2-shot of him and the clicker in the back, and then it just pans to Joel.
So you don't know where the clicker went.
Oh,
they are doing such a good job. Yeah. Oh, they're really, really doing so
well. That whole scene, like, I mean, it's great for anybody who hasn't played the game. Sure, it's still suspenseful, but if you have played the game, it's such just like a nice like fan servicey in the best way moment because everything about that scene just like you've like played that before, and even just like when it gets to him right there and then it turns and goes the other direction and it's like you get that in the game where like you like take a breath because it turns last second and walks away from you, or when he steps on the glass.
Yeah,
like
it's reminding me a lot actually of how I Am Legend did their monsters, because by the end scene when they're in the house you're realizing how like careful Will Smith was to be quiet. He's kind of sneaking, and like you get those similar shots where you see a little bit of a monster and they're like flashes and you're kind of following this character, and they made it very scary. And I think they're taking a lot of not taking a lot of ideas, but sort of following in the footsteps of how do we make zombies scarier. Right. I Am Legend is very mirrored already is kind of what I'm noticing too.
Yeah. I think it is smart, like you were saying, that they're including more zombies early on, because in the game it's great to have people because it's just more intact. You're going through so many enemies. It's good to have variety.
Why would you have so many Fedra agents out in the middle of the city?
Yes,
that doesn't make sense.
Well, and it actually makes a lot, because I was thinking earlier, like, why did they change it to zombies other than to show the hive mind thing, or change it to infected? Well, it makes sense because it's like in the game, it's like those fireflies that they were going to meet up with had just been killed by Fedra agents, and then I've always even kind of wondered when playing the game, because then they go in there, have their interaction with Tess, and then the Fedra agents like pull up again outside. It's like, wait, if they just got done killing fireflies there and left, why would they come back? You don't question it as much in a video game or whatever, but it just made so much more sense the way they did it, and then also giving us the chance to see so early on like the difference between these infected and like Walking Dead zombies and stuff, like just showing how they operate.
Leading into the moment where Tess is sort of on her way out, and she has that moment with Joel, and she says, "Save who you can save." You see this look in his eyes, and they really set it there for a few seconds and gave him that contemplation. You definitely saw a switch in Joel. That was so cool. That look on his face, and then he just grabs Ellie and turns.
Well, I was literally just thinking about, like, from a screenwriting point of view, what is the point of Tess as a character? She's in it for, like, barely the first act of the story.
Yeah.
Her point is to sway Joel's point of view on Ellie. That's literally the whole reason why she's in there.
Yeah, 100%. I think she is sort of to help introduce us to Joel and who Joel has been for all this time, and then to kind of bridge the gap between, or to not bridge the gap, but help influence the change in Joel's character. So she is like a major plot push for him.
Yeah, which is something super interesting looking forward to seeing Joel. Like in the next episode, is he going to start treating Ellie just even the slightest bit differently? I think that's super interesting, but you go.
Well, and I'm going off that. Like, it's so cool because he's still not necessarily escorting Ellie because he's fully buying into it or he wants to try to help humanity. It's like now he's got to, like, follow through on Tess's final wish.
Yeah.
Which is somebody that he actually cared about. And so that also makes you wonder, like, how well is he going to treat, like, when is he going to start treating Ellie better, or is he going to kind of be more, like, spiteful? Because it's just, like, now you're even more of a task I have to deal with, at least for now, like... But, I mean, she just killed it. Like, you could see a lot of their chemistry in that conversation and the way, like, you can definitely tell they had, like, a pretty deep relationship in a lot of ways. And she killed it, too, in just few scenes she had. Because she's even got more screen time in the game just because of stuff you're playing through and everything. But I did like how her and Ellie kind of bonded with each other in the episode way more than Ellie and Joel have up to this point. So it's just really cool to see that. But, yeah.
And just... something else we were talking about when we were watching it, but you said that they added the bite for Ellie in the show to do something in exchange for what they did in the game.
Sure, yeah. So taking out the spore, because so Joel obviously, like, still isn't buying into the whole infection thing much. Like, he's watching her sleep the whole night, and in the game, there's a part right after they leave the state house, right after Tess dies, they go in the sewers, they run into a bunch of spores, he takes his mask off and puts it on, and he's, like, trying to, like, kind of cover up Ellie or something, and she's like, no, I'm fine.
She's just Lottie freaking Dog.
Yeah, she's Lottie freaking Dog. And she's like, no, I told you, I'm fine, I can breathe in spores, and that's kind of a thing that helps him buy into it more. Well, since they took the spores out, they had that little moment of her getting bit again, or scratched, or whatever, so that he can really see, like, oh, okay, it wasn't just a fluke the first time, or it's not just a lie, it's like, this is real. So it's just like these little things that are kind of making him buy into it more, and then having the added on thing of, oh, Tess wants me to do this, like, Tess really believes in this. Because I like that moment where we didn't know that Tess was bit yet, but right after they got out of the museum, and she, like, gets mad at Joel and tells him, like, can't you just believe or, like, have hope that we might win for once or something? Like, that was a really cool moment.
That was like S for S from the game, almost.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Shot for shot.
Yeah.
It's kind of slang, kind of
Okay,
lingo
jock.
here.
Yeah.
Try to put it in terms you think they'll understand.
Yeah, S for S is a little term we use to save some time here. Shot for shot.
Did we really save any time?
No.
You could almost argue that it wasted time.
Yeah, completely. But I mean, yeah, Anna Torv killed it as Tess. I'm glad they're moving at the brisk pace they're moving, but it's almost sad that she was only in it for 2 episodes because she killed it. Her and Joel killed it.
But that's how you felt in the game too.
Yeah.
And then you quickly got over it.
Yeah,
I feel the same.
I feel much more attached to this test than the game test, though.
Yeah, I felt much more attached to this Sarah than the game Sarah, and I'm already over her death, so.
Yeah.
You're cold.
Yeah, you are cold, because I'm
just over the rack.
I was attached to Tess, and, like, her death, pretty weird, but pretty
yeah,
deep.
We have to talk about the big controversial moment.
Okay, good.
The questionable moment.
Is people are very up in arms
Everyone's
about this.
Really?
Yeah, well, they're confused.
Wait, what?
On
People are just
what
confused.
Does it mean?
They don't know what it means.
Yeah.
People are always confused, aren't they?
Yeah.
People always have a...
Yeah, and
A what?
yeah, I don't know. It's
You don't
like
know what you were going to say.
I don't know.
You were just rambling.
there's some like
I just talk sometimes to fill the air.
there's some controversy I have heard of, like, which we don't have to get into the controversy of this so much. We can talk like we can talk about what we think it means. But the controversy I've heard is like, oh, if it were a man getting attacked right now, they would be getting ripped apart. But because it's a woman, she's getting kissed, and it's like I've heard like some comparison to like the zombies, like her, like it's like sexual harassment, the infect, and multiple things. One, she was already infected.
Bingo.
It was already taking on.
They could smell it.
It's not. Yes, like these infected are gonna try to attack people that are gonna fight back. But it's like it had no set. They're intelligent. It knew she wasn't gonna fight back. It could tell she was already turning. And I think Neil Druckmann, he was even saying in an interview, like she already probably was turning, and then that's kind of how he even justifies the lighter not clicking. Like she's having trouble even with her motor skills at this point, and it's like she's kind of connecting with him.
And things have changed. Like they talk about like the infected changing in like an hour or two.
And the closer there were posters in the first episode that showed the closer it is to your brain, the bite it gets in there. It can get, and it was
Quicker.
right on her neck kind of area. Like, so I don't know. I just think the controversy, and I think it's a cool change from the game. It gives them a little bit more. Like, I don't know. So far, what they've done in this, they made them less just animalistic and more like a thriving, intelligent species.
Well, and just in production design speaking, like I talked about this in the first episode, but I love the thing that's going on with these clickers' mouths, where like this weird funguses,
there you go, yep.
bacterium is coming out of their mouth like these like fingers. Like, I think that's so
Tentacles.
Interesting. Yeah, tentacles even. I think it looks so cool. And, it's just so invasive.
Yeah.
It is. It's so invasive, and it's so just... It was very eerie. Eerie.
So.
Debatable. No, but it was. It made it much more, like, spooky. I think that we will see people ripped apart.
I was just going to say...
I think we're going to see people ripped apart under the pretense that they're not already bitten and infected. Because that was the first thing I thought. As soon as that smooch happened, I thought, oh, it's because she's infected. But then I also don't get... There was the question of, well, if she's already infected, why is he trying to infect her more?
Spreading it even gooder.
He wanted to make that sweet love connection, that sweet funguses love connection, man. He saw her, and he knew she was fresh infection, and he was all about that fresh infection.
Yeah, he walked up into the museum, and he saw her, and he just needed to get her. Yeah, the State House, I'm mixing up the locations here. He saw her and needed to get her.
He just needed to get at her.
Yeah.
Is this how we get our hub connection?
My point, for anybody who's worried that we're only going to see people, making out with infected, I think we're going to have plenty of men, women, anyone getting ripped apart by infected in this show. I think it was a cool way of showing the intelligence of the infected, how they operate.
I love that description that, like, they would only attack people that are going to fight back. The people that sound scared, since they can only hear. The people that are reloading their guns super carelessly. Like, I don't know. Like, if they're hearing just the lighter, of a lighter.
They didn't know what she was doing. They just were like, oh, she's standing there. Some of us is in her. She's becoming part of us now.
And just going off of the hive mind thing. They know.
Yeah.
They know. It's already in her.
I also love that it's raising some more questions moving forward. It's giving us something separate from the game so that we can't predict everything.
Yeah.
They want us to...
It wasn't a kiss.
It wasn't a kiss. It was not a kiss. It was a transference.
It was a transference.
Yes.
And something they've already established with their mouths.
Yeah.
It's not a kiss.
No. It was just... It's shot in a very, like... weird, not romantic, that's not the right word, but like
eerie.
Creepy. Weird way, and it's just like, oh my gosh, it's I thought it was creepy to watch. And
it's invasive. It's supposed to feel uncomfortable.
Right.
Yeah. Because it's fungus fucking taking over her body.
It's not supposed to make you feel good watching that.
We're all in agreement. We're not arguing.
We're fighting that. We're fighting towards the man.
The man who gave it bad review because they're stupid.
Yeah, I agree about that.
Yeah, and then so moving to the last bit of it, they watch the building blow, and
then Ellie is Vader by herself saying no.
And then Joel's just like, shut up about it.
God, but that's a cool little moment for Ellie by herself, where she's just standing there in just utter shock.
Well, and it's cool too because you saw that Tess was putting in effort to sort of connect with Ellie and sort of train Ellie for, you're outside the wall. It gets real now. Like, you're not immune from being torn apart. She was really trying to build a relationship with Ellie in a sense of, like, woman to woman, here's how you survive in this world.
Yeah.
And so I think Ellie felt that for sure.
Yeah.
And now she also realizes, like, I'm stuck with this guy.
Yeah.
It's going to be tense moving forward, and it's going to be cool to see Bill introduced, because Frank will not be there.
Yeah, this episode is just very much a turning point for both protagonists here. Like, this is the inciting incident here. This is shooting them towards their act 2 of their storyline.
Yeah, because now they're with each other. Anybody else they come across are just people they're kind of meeting along the way, but it's like they're in this together. They don't have a companion, like, ongoing, like the Tess level, who you think might be, going on with them on the journey this whole time or whatever. It's just like Joel is responsible for this and trying to get her to Bill and Frank. I mean, What other thoughts do you guys have on the episode? Because I was...
One thing I did notice that I forgot to bring up earlier, and we definitely should wrap this up pretty soon, but one thing I noticed earlier was Joel mentioning in the beginning to Tess, I think it's just a hairline fracture, he's talking about his fist, his knuckles, he hurt himself after beating that dude. And then later when we see him rescue Ellie from, well, not rescue Ellie, but he runs over there and finds it's a skeleton in the water.
Yeah.
He helps her up. You see him, like, acknowledge his injury a little bit. He's looking at it, like... It's cool that they're sort of carrying that on through, and I hope that I can't imagine they just forget about it. I really think that, like, they're acknowledging these sort of injuries, but that's also, like, the very last question she asked him in the hallway before Tess reappeared was about the man that he beat. Because she asked, is it hard killing them knowing they were people once? What about that guy that you beat? That's a whole flashback. Obviously, we saw him connect that to his real daughter, and then we cut that moment off right there. So there's still that bit of a connection physically for him to this moment where he remembered his daughter.
Yeah. That's similar to how he glances at his watch, too. Yeah. It's a whole other type of thing. Like, the watch is kind of a memory of his daughter, and then that's a memory of, like, the moment where he got angry and over, like, connecting Ellie to the daughter, too. Right. That's nice. I noticed when I was rewatching that with Nick that he glanced at his hand there, and I didn't think about that. I didn't know why he did that. I was like, that's not his watch.
Because it's hooded.
Makes a lot of sense. It hooded him. You didn't feel very good.
He didn't feel very good.
I mean, yeah, it was a fantastic episode. I can't wait for Bill and Frank.
Oh, God, I'm so excited for Nick Offerman.
Who knows if even Frank is alive, though? They're talking about Frank like he's alive. Like, they know this Frank.
I think we're going to see a lot of Bill and Frank's backstory, but I think it's going to be similar to the game where when we approach Bill, Frank has recently passed, and this is a hard time for Bill.
Well, okay, well, in that case, prediction-wise, I bet the first scene is going to be Frank and Bill.
Actually, I think we already know it, because remember when we were... seeing their musical codes they send to each other.
Right. Yeah.
He sent him 80s music. Okay, so she was in the room. Ellie was in the room with Joel. He's taking a nap while they're waiting in episode 1 to leave town at night. She's cracking his little book code because he says that he and Bill are sending signals to each other via music. So 70s means something, 80s means something, and then maybe it was like 90s meant something.
80s is danger.
I'm in danger. And after they leave, the episode closes out on that song from the 80s from Bill, meaning something's gone wrong. Yeah. I bet you anything that's Frank's death. So we're going to be getting to Bill right after Frank's death.
Holy crap, okay. Whoa. When does this happen?
At the end of the first episode.
Whoa, okay, that's something.
He gets
way
a
over my
message
head.
from Bill saying something's bad.
Yeah.
Here.
Oh my gosh. But we have to infer because it's an 80s song.
Yes, we infer because it's an 80s song that it's danger.
Oh,
but we also saw
stupid.
We saw in a preview for the next episode, for episode 3.
Yeah. He's like, call Joel.
Call Joel.
Yeah.
Call Joel. Tell Joel. Something like that.
Laying there.
Yeah. So there's clearly, I think we're getting to Bill very freshly after Frank's death.
It's fun that they're giving Frank a bigger role, because Joel didn't even know about Frank's existence in the show, or in the game, but it's like in this one it's clearly established that like Bill and Frank are a duo team, so it's, I can't wait to see how they do that.
It's going to be cool. It's going to be really cool.
I do hope it's a lot of, I'd be totally fine if it's a lot of like, the episode's a lot of jumping through time to show Bill and Frank, and then it'll be cool to see Joel and Ellie arriving there. But I do hope we get a good amount of Bill and
God, but I hope they don't do the Walking Dead thing where it's just a whole bottle episode of just some other people without the protagonists in the episode.
I mean, at least they're shown in the trailer, so I think it's going to be an even mix.
I bet they'll be the cold open. We'll get a good thing about them in the cold open potential.
I think. Out of the whole season, this will be the most, like, bottle episode feeling one. But, I think we're still going to get a lot of Joel and Ellie. I think there's a good chance for some differences in this one from the game, for sure.
I'm excited.
I'm excited, too.
But with all of that, I think...
that's pretty good.
I give this episode 4.6 piano-playing toads out of 5.
Okay.
Dead air.
You don't remember?
No.
When the
he's jumping on the piano. Okay, all right.
Well, happy toad.
Alright, is that our rating system now?
I'm gonna give it. It's whatever you want.
4.6
Yeah.
piano playing toads out of 5.
Okay.
I'm gonna give it 9.8 out of 10. Sweet Tess infected hookup makeouts.
Ah!
Out of 10.
Oh, you are biased.
That's what I'm gonna give it. I loved it.
That's a pretty high rating.
That is a high rating.
9.8.
Yeah,
I mean
that's
not
near perfect.
That's not much lower than a 4.6 in the grand scheme of things.
That's like
It's higher.
That's
I mean, I don't have. I can't honestly think of much that's wrong with it. I mean, what,
Yeah, that's true.
What would be? Okay,
Ozymandias Breaking Bad is 10 murders out of.
Wow,
10.
Spoilers. But if you haven't seen it by now, you really don't care.
You really don't care.
You clearly don't want to.
That's a 10 out of 10. So
Sure.
So if you're, it doesn't matter.
None of this matters. We'll catch you after the next one.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Oh,
Yeah.
Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button and smash that notification bell. Bing.
We'll talk to you later.
End it now.
We will catch you later.